get hundreds of emails from people, and they often ask me, what is the best affordable first-time buyer Porsche 911? And there's no real straight answer to that question, but I sort of thought I'd practice what I'd preach. I told a lot of people that SCs were great bang for the buck, great value, great first-time Porsche ownership car. So what I did was track down a former DE track car that was still somewhat streetable. And what I liked about the car was it had been a track car for the past 10 years. So it already had a lot of suspension upgrades that I would have done to a build anyway. So in essence, you know, a little bit of the heavy lifting was already done. Obviously, it needed some fine tuning, needed some tweaks, needed some maintenance. But to me, it was just a great project that I was able to put my personality into. What I like about track cars or other people's track cars, in essence, just like my own track car, is you always maintain a track car because you're going to be out there on the track at high speeds, and you always want to make sure, you know, the systems are, you know, functioning properly. So I find track cars are often, maybe they're abused and a little bit beat up, but often they're pretty well maintained. And for me, I was drawn to the SC because I like the variety of something new and something different. Always sort of like the torquiness that those motors have to offer. In the past, a lot of the builds that I've been known for have been built on early cars that needed everything. The SC, on the other hand, was a completely different ball game. It was already pretty much a running, driving car. Naturally, it had some issues when I first got it. Overall, the car started out as a great base. You know, it was a car that had a lot of performance, mild, moderate performance upgrades to make it a drivable track car, and that was what I liked about it. It wasn't perfect, it already had a lot of patina built into it, and essentially I was just adding my character and soul to the car. So the things that I did to the car is I made the front and rear bumpers fit good. I added the rear ducktail because, ironically, having owned over 50 911s, I've really only owned one or two cars that had the iconic ducktail. A lot of it was parts that I either had or parts that I sourced used on the market. For example, the seatbelt harnesses were new old stock that I bought for 150 bucks. I also wanted to change the aesthetic look of the early flag mirrors for those more stealth Ventiloni mirrors, which I also found online for 100 bucks. Then I set upon adding the 72mm racy studs to the car, lowered the car and put on a set of 7 and 8 inch wheels that are wrapped in Toyo R888 tires. The whole principle for me behind that build was not to have a long, drawn-out, time-consuming slide down what I like to call the Porsche slippery slope. Build a car in a short period of time on a limited budget where it wasn't this big, full-blown, you know, year-long build like the STR was. So that car was sort of turned around in about 6 weeks. I think it came out really cool with a lot of its own character. Being a track car, the interior seats were pretty beat up and mismatched, so I kept one of those Corbeau bucket seats and then sourced a used one online for 150 bucks and then recovered the centers with that red tartan plaid that we had left over from our clothing days, and then added the RS door pulls and door pull straps in the same fabric. Porsche itself in the 70s was fond of putting plaid interiors into the cars anyway. So it's somewhat period correct, but with a little bit more of like a punk rock attitude and vibe to it. One of the great things about the 78 SCHR was it actually came with a binder full of invoices dating back to 1979, which is pretty incredible. It's something that, you know, I've not actually found in a car before that I've owned. But the greatest thing was pulling out the prior two owners' logbooks, where I actually saw, you know, events they'd done, where they'd finished in their DE time trials, their handwritten notes basically saying what happened to the car, what they did to the car, issues the car had. So that's a real cool piece of DNA history, and you know, just goes to show the prior owners of the car were basically doing the same thing I'm doing with the car, getting out there and driving it and enjoying it.